I'm David Auerbach.
I'm Vallabhaneni.
And we are 2/3 of Sanergy.
The entire concept for Sanergy is that there is no viable models for providing sanitation to urban slums in the developing world. The fact is that there's 2.6 billion people without access to sanitation. In 5 years' time, the UN expects that that's going to be reduced by half, and realistically, that's not possible with the solutions that are out there right now. So we think there is a space for-profit solution, a market-based solution for providing sanitation to these resource-constrained areas.
Our first semester at MIT, we audited a class called Development Ventures, in which you're challenged to come up with a business solution to a poverty-related challenge. And we had been thinking a lot about, the fact that clean water is really a very hot issue.
David, Jeff, and I formed a team to look at the sanitation issue because it's one of the most unaddressed issues in the development sector right now. It's not a very sexy topic to work on. So we went to Kenya to do a feasibility study on, what is the market landscape? What are the existing sanitation solutions out there, and where are the gaps, and how can we fill those with a market-based solution? And we think we've identified a concept based on using small sanitation centers, micro-franchising, and then collecting the waste from those sanitation centers and converting it to electricity and fertilizer on a centralized large-scale basis and selling it back into the power grid of Kenya.
Sanergy addresses two big challenges that the government is really struggling to face, which one is energy supply. Kenya recently had a drought, and they lost 30% of their regular electricity supply because it's hydrothermal. And then secondly, youth unemployment. 40% of the population is unemployed. Our ideas around sanitation centers and waste collection networks, and then even operating an energy conversion factory, are going to create jobs for young people.
We think for-profit models are important because so far all the solutions that are provided in sanitation are dependent on donor-based funds, and it's very clear you can map out when the projects work, and as soon as the donor funds dry out, the projects disappear. Everything falls into disrepair. 5 years down, you go build a toilet in a location, 3, 4, 5 years back, you go back and people are using it as a storage closet because they don't have the funds to maintain it. So we think a financially sustainable for-profit model is required to keep the incentives aligned and to keep this project going on a long-term basis, to keep the infrastructure running on a long-term basis. Our basic business model is that we provide lots of low-cost sanitation centers around the slums. Kind of think about it like the Starbucks or McDonald's of toilets in the slums. And we use UDDT, which is urine diverting dry toilet technology, to, rather than putting the waste into sewage plants, we collect the waste and then we transport it to our centralized processing center where it can be easily converted to methane, which we burn to convert to electricity, and also organic fertilizer, which we can sell to commercial farms. So using those funds to kind of push back into the system to keep the infrastructure on the front end going, and hopefully that will provide an ongoing solution.
When you're developing a business idea in a classroom, you feel very, very removed from what the reality is on the ground. And the Legatum Seed Grant enabled us to get to Kenya and spend 3 weeks there. And the first day that you're in the slums, you walk around and you're stepping on plastic bags. And these are known as flying toilets. And so people defecate into these plastic bags and then just chuck them away. That is an incredibly unsanitary experience, and you can think about it from a classroom. But once you're actually there and having to walk over it, it really changes your perspective and the magnitude of the problem and how prevalent a problem it is. So the grant really enabled us to go into the slums, to meet with people, to understand their needs better, users, to understand the challenges that we might be facing, and then to meet with all the stakeholders.
I think what makes our project unique is that we're taking a value chain approach to sanitation. There's a lot of organizations that go in and do awareness building, where they tell people, where they go have community groups come together and say, okay, open defecation is bad, sanitation is good for the environment, it's good for your families, it's good for your health. But they leave it there. There's no infrastructure for the communities. Then there's other groups that go in and build infrastructure, but don't think about, well, what happens once that pit is full, or once that septic tank is full, or that sewage connection is broken, what happens in the long term? So what we're trying to do is not only provide the education awareness and build infrastructure, but also provide a back-end solution of what's going to happen to this waste, and how can we rather than just dumping the waste into pits or into the ocean, how can we convert that into a profitable model that can, then we can drive those funds back into the front end of the model.